Hey there. Happy new moon in Scorpio. How's everybody doing? My name is Trish Campbell, and I'm just waiting for my good friend Nadine Searle to join me. We are going to do another one of our Love Me Chit Chats, and we're picking up where we left off last time, talking about repeating maybe old behaviors, old patterns in situations, and all of that. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper, specifically around, yeah, we'll get into it, but just more around relational dynamics, different relations, whether that's work or romantic or family. And sorry for that. And we are kind of really supported right now in the astrological energies with this new moon in Scorpio. This one feels, I don't know if you're feeling that, but feels more like a full moon. It's definitely intense. We have 5 planets in retrograde right now: Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. I think that's 5 I named off. And so all of those planets in retrograde are forcing us to kind of slow down. And specifically, Mercury retrograde is conjunct this new moon right now, along with Venus. So that brings up a lot of communication. Venus, the planet of beauty and love, might be some romantic aspect to that, also around money. So would love to know if you guys are feeling any of that I just mentioned. Nadine's here, so I'm going to let her in. Hopefully it works this time. Hi, Nadine. I don't know.
Hello.
I saw you come in and then I let you in, but then I don't know what
And I
happened,
didn't,
but
and I didn't arrive, did I? So
no,
there you go.
no.
It's one of those things, but we're here together
Yeah.
now, so that's lovely.
Yeah.
So what did I miss? Were you talking about the
Well,
planets and
I was
everything?
just, yeah, I thought you were coming in, so I kind of waited because there's always like the sound cuts out when that happens, when you
Yeah.
join. And so anyways, and then I paused, but yeah, I was talking about the planets and how we have 5 planets in retrograde right now, that's kind of forcing us to slow down and um take pause, like reflect on some parts of ourselves, with this being in the sign of Scorpio, to reflect on things that have been hidden, things we've tucked away maybe. And I just was saying we're closing out a calendar year and entering a new one, and maybe we don't want to take some of this stuff with us into the new year, and we want to kind of let it come up for our review and facing the parts of ourselves that maybe we haven't faced, and then letting some of that go so that we can kind of like clear the slate for this new calendar year. Even though you and I always talk about it's not really the actual new year, that being
Mm.
spring equinox, but there is this sense, I don't know, I'm feeling it more than the recent years, of kind of clearing out to make space for something new, for a new chapter. And I think it has to do with us, this being that 9 year, 9 being completion,
Mm. Mm.
energy, and entering into a 1 year, one being like new beginnings, new chapter, a
Yeah.
new cycle for us collectively speaking. And I think collectively speaking, we can all feel all of that intensity. So
Yeah. Mm.
this, yeah, I think I said already that this kind of feels like more like a full moon than a new moon, with the intensity that I'm feeling, and just
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
wise. I don't know, how are you feeling?
Mm. It does feel big and heavy in a way, doesn't it? And I love that when you say about the retrograde, a lot of people, when you say a planet's in retrograde, especially Mercury, they get a bit
Hmm.
scared, don't they? Because that's when things can mess up a bit. But I like to look at it like it's the re, isn't it? And we've talked, one of
Yeah.
our chit chats was about re, wasn't it? And it is a little bit about, like you say, review. It's a time to review. It's also a time to recognize, there are some things that we go, okay, yes, let's clear that if we want to, or we might choose to keep some things, patterns and habits and things, and that's fine too. And then
Hmm.
we are invited then to release as well, aren't we? So we can
Yeah.
do it. For that reason, I do feel a little bit like the full moon energy, because that is our time to release, isn't it? So I am feeling that as well, which is a little bit strange in a way, but maybe
Yeah.
there's something, something in that. But I do feel, the new moon is a time traditionally for creating and setting intentions.
Hmm.
So we can do that in the same way, can't we? By
Yeah.
actually reviewing and recognizing and releasing, we can actually create our new patterns as well. But it's step by step all the time, isn't it? It's
Hmm.
not that we have to do it all at once. It's those steps, isn't it? And as we say so often, repeating, maybe that's another repeating, isn't it? Repeat,
Repeating.
repeat,
Yeah.
repeat. And it is very much, those old patterns, those things that we do, sometimes they come up again for us, don't they?
Hmm.
Like you always say to me, you remind me, don't you? Was another remind. They're all coming today. But you
Yeah.
remind me that actually, we're in a new place to hear those lessons,
Hmm.
and to respond differently. And I like that, because then you sort of go, it takes away that almost frustration at going, I thought I'd learnt this lesson and it comes up
Hmm.
again. And we have opportunities. And it is, for me especially, and I think probably for a lot of other people, when we are learning our lessons, they can take a long time. It sometimes is repeating, and sometimes it is actually get that from a different angle in a different way and go, oh, that's the same lesson, that's maybe the same response. But
Right.
actually, to think that I'm in a different place, I've moved on, I've grown a bit. And someone was just putting a little bit 100% there, so someone's agreeing with us, which is lovely. I can't see anybody. If you're joining with us, then please feel free to comment, put something in the
Hmm.
comment box if you want to ask any questions. But I do feel, yeah, it just feels there's so much. We are definitely, the clocks have changed. We've got the darker evenings and that kind of thing. So I'm very much feeling I want to rest a little bit, go into that hibernation mode. And I
Hmm.
give myself that. That is lovely. We can do that, can't we? Again, I
Yeah.
recognise that and I see that's a pattern. But obviously we still carry on. We don't just hibernate totally, do we? But that feeling of being cozy and comfy and looking after ourselves a bit more is there for me. And I and
Yeah.
I, I do embrace that now. I love that. I used to fight it, but now I go with it. So planetary, whatever's going on, and I think you said it's Scorpio, isn't it? Sign of
Yeah.
Scorpio, which is which can be a bit tricky sometimes, in my sort of understanding. So feeling that energy as well, and that resistance to, like you say, changing and stepping into a new year. Sometimes we do resist it, don't we? So,
We
and there's a
do.
lot. There's a lot there, isn't there? There's a lot going.
Yeah. Speaking of resistance, I think Scorpio gets a bad rap because it is that like intense energy, and that speaks for itself because we don't like to be uncomfortable. So we just kind of like
Mm,
label it as that, and
mm,
we kind of resist it, but it's like I love this energy because like we talk about this. We're comfortable with talking about uncomfortable things, and because it's important, and again, to bring up, like, I think why that kind of energy, the invitation of Scorpio to go to the depths that we haven't been to before, uncover parts, turn over stones that we haven't turned over before,
mm,
because we're here to like allow our soul to grow. And if we like let our ego like get in the way, and kind of like it puts a barrier toward like to that, and it
mm.
stops us from doing that. So the more we talk about it, reflect on it, give ourselves that space of even hibernation, like you said, and just allowing ourselves to be in stillness, and to face the uncomfortable things, the more we get to know ourselves, and the more we can be soul driven versus ego
Yeah,
driven in our lives. And it ties
yeah,
in beautifully with what we're talking about, because we're talking about, repeating patterns that we, maybe an older version of ourselves, that was the norm, but as we heal and grow, we come to have more self-awareness, and we
mm,
know like to respond versus react. But sometimes our nervous system, is in a situation, we're in a situation where there's some sort of emotional wound happening,
yeah,
and our nervous system kind of takes over, subconscious takes over, and we react in a way that maybe we don't realize we're doing, and in some cases can be even passive aggressive. In
yeah,
a sense, I
yeah,
know for myself, this year has been a year of, there's been a lot of grief for me, and even so with that, there's also a lot of learning, because I'm not one to kind of run away from that grief and pain. I
mm,
run towards and lean in and learn about myself so that I can navigate emotions better and navigate
mm,
life
mm,
better. But also, there's been times where I've had experiences this year where maybe I was like feeling wounded, and even in that moment. And so my reaction then had some of a little bit of a retaliation in that, like, not
mm,
consciously, but subconsciously, maybe words were said, they were kind of barbed in a way,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and sharp and hard hitting, and have a bite
mm,
to them, maybe because that was like not my conscious self-aware self responding. It was my, fight or flight mode, survival mode
yes, yeah,
self responding to a
mm,
situation where I felt like I was being wounded, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe not even having the awareness of that was going on in the moment. But um and you and I talk about this all the time, like there's sort of a learning in that, and understanding what happened there. And
mm,
then, so then the next time it like we can not repeat that. And that's
yeah,
also the invitation right now, to review those things within ourselves so that we don't repeat patterns that aren't serving us. I
mm,
don't know.
mm,
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't know if you have anything, if that's resonant for you, like what I just described.
yeah. There's so much that I can really relate to in what you've just said. There's tons there that you've said. And I actually think one of the things I want to pick up on is, and actually just, it's something I think is so beautiful. You said to be soul driven rather than ego driven. And I love
Mhm.
that so much because, it's our choice, isn't it? To remember we have a choice all the time. And I come back to that power of the pause. We can take just a
Mm,
moment to stop, recognize, and
mhm.
choose. And it's very simple and very easy, and it's a practice, isn't it? We can do that. So to know that we
Yeah.
can, if I tend to look at it quite often, or I say it in the way that we can either choose to react with our head or our heart, and we can choose that. And again, it's that kind of like choosing, how are we going
Mhm.
to come back at this? Are we making our decisions from our heart or our head, or from, like you say, being hurt, our ego, our soul? but we can choose, can't we? And recognizing what we do and not giving ourselves a hard time about our patterns is crucial, isn't it? Going, this is what I do. Okay, that's fine. And it's understandable and that's okay. But can I choose maybe the next time it happens, or it's just happened again, to react in a different way? And we have that choice. And once we step into that, and a little pause is all we need to just stop and give yourself a moment and choose how you react. It's empowering. It really changes things.
It is, yeah.
And to be honest, when I was first sort of told about this, you don't have to react that way, I went, no, I react how I react. I didn't think about it. I never gave myself that moment to pause and think about it and choose, make a conscious decision. And I've learned how to, and it is something. You talked about passive aggressive. I never really used to know what that meant. I've heard it a lot. I don't really know what that is. And then I realised that I was passive aggressive. Didn't really realise, sometimes quite aggressive, not passive. And then again, just going, okay, that's how I react. That's what I do. Questioning it. As you know, one of my 6 steps in my Calmer Self method is gentle questioning. And it's nice to do that, just to reflect a little bit and go, okay, that's what I did. Why? Maybe find out if there is a reason. Sometimes you don't really know why, but again, to know that you can choose the next time something happens to try something a bit different, and we can just try that on. And I have learned, over the decades, it's been a total education for me to actually start recognizing my patterns, and trying not to give myself too much of a hard time about it. You do what you do when you don't know any better, don't you? And also, again, one of my 6 steps, as you know, is sitting with those difficult emotions. So when it's uncomfortable, just actually giving yourself that safe, calm space, whether you talk it through with someone else or you do that practice on your own, just to go like, that feels uncomfortable. I don't like it. But being brave enough, if you like, to sit with it, like you said earlier. And then what you come out with is something different. You learn from that sitting with it. And also it takes the fear away. And as you know, I'm big on, I don't want anyone to feel scared about anything, definitely not about emotions and everything. So it is something that is an education. It does maybe take time. It definitely has for me to change, to make those changes. And being kind to myself and going, well, that's what I do. Can I change? Is it something I want to try? And try it out. And it does feel uncomfortable. It has done for me to start with, and then realise that actually I'm getting more comfortable with it the more I practice it. That's lovely as well. Just go, oh, that's what I do now. We change, don't we, as we
do, yeah.
So it's lovely to go. And I think about the easiest way for me to describe what I'm just trying to say is that within work situations, I've quite often been, and I would say hurt, it sounds a bit dramatic, but hurt by other people in work, maybe unheard or not recognised, because those are important things for me. I think for everybody to be heard and recognised while you're working. And sometimes that hasn't happened. And my reaction to that has been quite spiteful in the past. I've been quite nasty with someone who maybe, someone maybe who's above me in the workplace, and they maybe haven't handled me as tenderly as I'd like to be handled. And I'm being very diplomatic how I'm saying that. And then just going and thinking to myself, that's sort of trying maybe to understand the other side a little bit, which I never used to do. I literally used to be quite horrible, cause a lot of trouble, maybe flounce out of a job, disappear, make as much drama as I could because I've been hurt. But not actually nobody really realised, maybe the person that hurt me didn't realise because I never said. I just would react in a very dramatic way. And then realising that wasn't doing me any good or actually getting the problem solved, just walking away with all the drama and all the nastiness that I can throw at the situation really didn't help anybody, especially me. So I gradually started, like you say, recognising that, that's what I've done, why have I done that kind of thing. And then almost maybe inviting that situation maybe to come along, and maybe having another chance to see how I react to it. And I do think sometimes these things have repeated for me. I've been in different work situations and the same kind of thing has happened. And I've gone, oh, why me? That's not fair. Why is that happening again? But now I can reflect and go, these things come back again so that I can react in a different way, see how I've grown, see what I've learned and try it out in a different way. So sometimes I'm grateful for those repeated lessons. And definitely, you know, I have evolved into someone who, as I say, used to be quite dramatic and quite nasty when I felt hurt.
I
And
can't
now,
imagine.
well, do you know, you say that. But there you go. It's nice that you see
Yeah.
me in this way. But also just to go, you know, to start to change the way that I react, which
Hmm.
actually, you know, never mind the fact of hurting other people less, it's hurting me less. And that's,
Right.
you know, that's really important. I'm not so damaged by doing that. I don't give myself a hard time and look back and go, well, that was really nasty. It was out of control. I've actually
Right.
made that conscious decision to change how I react. And that's done me the world of good. So now I'm more in a situation where if someone hurts me, um, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I've still got some learning to do, but I can maybe tell the
Hmm.
person that's hurt me. Maybe not immediately, not at the time, but again to step away, not have that knee jerk reaction, and actually, you know, handle it in a different way that serves us
Right.
all better. You know, we all can learn from it. We all can change a little bit from it. So I
Yeah.
am learning. It's work in progress, but I am learning. So
It is a
yeah.
work in progress, and there's so much to say about everything you just shared. So first of all, thanks for sharing that, because it's hard to, number one, admit when we have behaved in a way that isn't our true self or isn't how
Mm,
we truly feel
yeah.
necessarily. I know, like, that's like what I was describing is like, if you just give yourself that pause to think about it before you
Mm,
actually say something,
yeah.
then it could look differently. But and then what ends up happening a lot of the times, I think, when we do that is, like you said, like you went back and you're like, oh, why did I do that? You felt bad about behaving
Mm,
that way. And what
mm,
we do is, like, a lot of times is shut down
yeah.
and tuck that away and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then la 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 la, we're walking through life, and again another situation
Mm,
comes up where
mm,
again we're feeling wounded, and again we're behaving in a way that we didn't really intend to, if we were to take a moment and really
yeah.
think about it
Mm,
and approach it from a healthier perspective.
mm,
And
mm,
so it's like, number one, like, I think the key is to give ourselves like some self-compassion there
mm,
in those situations where we've behaved maybe differently than we wanted to, because it's coming from, we're acting from those wounds, and wounds that are happening maybe in the moment that have been triggered, or something that's triggered an old wound.
mm,
Regardless, like, our
mm,
nervous system is on alert and we're reacting instead of taking time to have some awareness around how we're going to respond.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, self-compassion is the first step towards that, is to not beat ourselves up, like you said,
Mm, mm,
and to then allow ourselves to reflect on that instead of trying to ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, to allow
mm,
ourselves to reflect and be with it and sit with it, like you said, question why did that make me feel, and not question from a judgment place, but just understanding, to try to
mm,
explore what's underneath that. and
yeah.
and the more we do that, like you said, the easier it becomes, that process of being in the discomfort of our own, like, shit, the stuff that we do
Mm,
to
mm,
ourselves. And then that process also becomes easier to practice something different the more we do it, because then the next time we're going to be like, wait a minute, let me just pause. I know I need to pause for a second.
mm,
And then how do I really want to respond here, versus like just letting
yeah.
the, survivor mode take over and
Mm,
respond in a way that's going to wound somebody again in retaliation for that. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
that's, I think it's so important to, like, talk about these things, because I feel like none of us are exempt from these situations. I think we all
Mm,
have been hurt, and
mm,
we all have hurt people, and we
yes.
are imperfect
Yes.
humans, but we
Yeah.
can also move with grace and humility through these situations, these emotional dynamics, when they come
Mm,
up, because they will come up. And it's
yeah.
that practice, like you said, to actually be with it and not just pretend it didn't happen. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we want to talk about it. And,
Yeah, I think it's so true, isn't it? Because sometimes with that, and I know I've felt it, you know, there's a certain amount of shame around how I might have
hmm
behaved. And I don't want to feel like that. And I don't want to put myself through that. So again, choosing it. And I used to, again, you know, thinking back to how I used to respond, I used to feel that I had to share my emotions in the moment because that
yeah,
was the only way that I would be heard. you know, I've got to say it now because that's what I'm feeling, and get it out. And it never came out the way I really wanted it in reflection. So that is, you know, and I took a little while to learn that actually I can step away and I can come back and say what I need to say and still be heard and understood. Because I used to think it has to be in the moment and it has to be aggressive
Right.
and real and nasty, because no one will take any notice if it isn't. But
Right.
and
I can
again, only
totally relate.
yeah, exactly. It's only through practice that I know I can actually, in a quieter, calmer way, get the attention I need from the person I need it from.
Hmm.
And sometimes, quite often, much better way, with definitely with a better result, and still have that impact of my feelings. You know,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense. You know, I'm almost
It
feeling if my
does.
feelings are hurt, I have to say something there and then, otherwise I've missed the moment. You know, but actually in reflection, and then what you say is much more. Um, well, it's all true, isn't it? And what you're saying, you know, sometimes what I might have said, I won't say because that wasn't important. I would say something different.
Hmm.
But to get that, actually think about what I want to say, why I want to say it, and a little bit about what I want to get back in response. What am I upset about? What was that? You know, was it tone of voice? Was it whatever? You know, sometimes those things you can let go of. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It might be in this because remembering that the other person is human too, and
Yes.
flawed, like we say, not perfect as we all are, but and just to go right, I want to talk about that later on. But I used to be scared of doing that because I thought that I would have missed the moment and it would have missed its impact. But I have learnt that, you know, sometimes there's more power into coming. You know, I'm just thinking of the saying, it's not revenge that I'm talking about, but they say revenge is a dish best served cold, isn't it? You know, and I'm not talking about revenge, but it just made me think of that. We can come back to our feelings and they can still have as much impact, can't they? If we say them, maybe instead of shouting and screaming at someone, I can actually say it coolly and calmly. Um, Maybe it has more impact. Maybe
I
listen a
think,
bit more.
yeah, and even removing this, like being removed from the situation in the moment, because what ends up happening, and I can totally relate to like not feeling seen and heard. And it's one of our highest needs as human
Mm,
beings is
it is, yeah.
to be seen and heard, to be
Mm,
understood. And when a
mm,
lot of times when we're misunderstood or we're not seen and heard, like the emotions like flood
yeah.
in.
Mm,
And but it's like removing ourselves from that situation and then coming back to it, like you said, like to allow ourselves to really connect with what is actually going on within ourselves,
mm,
and then
mm.
being in a better place to then communicate that to the other
Yeah,
person. But
yeah,
also, if you're doing it in that moment when like the defenses on the other side are just going to come up and it's never going to end well. So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you just end up hurting each other when you didn't intend
Mm,
for that in the first
mm,
place. You just wanted to feel seen and heard in the
mm.
and or whatever, but that there's that energy around feeling seen and heard, and it can look different ways. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's at the root of it, and that's all we really
mhm,
want. And
yeah,
so, but we can come at it from a healthier way the more that we do this self-reflection, allow ourselves the pause, allow ourselves to like kind of go in and inward and explore
mm,
those parts of ourselves that we haven't explored, so that we
yeah.
can then operate from this more soul-led place,
Yes,
like we
exactly.
said earlier. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, you know, that's a better place to be,
Mm,
you know, feeling and choosing how we react to things, isn't it? If we are coming from our soul, our heart, however you want to look at it, rather than that knee jerk. And it is right. You know, I can think back to situations where all I wanted to do was be spiteful. That's all I
mhm.
wanted. And, you know, and that isn't what's that all about? You know, why do I want to do that? Why do I need to do that? Is it going to get me anywhere? You know, am I going to feel bad about it afterwards? Those are the questions I ask myself. And actually then coming back, like you say, after a bit of a pause, however long you want to take, then you can come back completely differently and get a better
Yes.
response all round. So I think that's almost like the message we're definitely trying to say here, isn't it?
Mhm.
And I would encourage anyone to try it. You know, someone said to me a long time ago, you know, you can try something different. You don't have to say that's how you're going to do it forever. You can try it once, and again, if you don't like it, try something different. You know, that is really freeing, isn't it? To think, well, I'm going to
Mhm.
try it a different way. You know, because again, there's resistance to change, isn't there?
There is,
I'm
yeah.
going to do what I've always done because that's what I'm comfortable with, and doing something different is uncomfortable, but it's worth giving it a go, isn't it? And even if you just go, I'm just going to do it the once, you can try it and
I
see. So I would encourage anyone to try something a bit different, maybe, to
I
see how that fits.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a perfect note to end this conversation on, to give like ourselves that invitation to try something different and to be open to like experimenting with that. And like it doesn't have
Mm,
to look a certain way. It doesn't have to look the same way for
yeah,
everybody. And I think
yeah,
that's beautiful. But it's allowing ourselves to be there and to
yeah,
do to work to move through that rather
yeah.
than trying to avoid it, I think.
Definitely, I think that's lovely. So we've touched on the fact that this is how we help people a lot, isn't it, in our work
Mhm.
and what we do. So where can everybody find you and find out about the lovely work that you do and how you help people maybe go through these emotions and find a better way? How do you help people? Where can
Yeah,
they look for
well,
you?
the easiest place is right here on Instagram. This is Trish Campbell. Send me a DM, but also my website, this is trishcampbell.com, is a good place as well. And how about for you? Where can people find you and all
Yeah.
of your lovely work?
I love to point people at my YouTube channel, which is Calm Myself, which is CALMER, Calm Myself. That's my business name. And we put these chit chats on there so that you can people
Yes.
look back at some of the things we've referred to. We talked about lots of topics. So they're always on there. But also, if you have a look at some of the podcasts and interviews and things that are on there, you'll get a feel more about what I do and how I help people. So the YouTube channel is the best place for people to find out more about me.
Love that. Thanks so much for having this conversation. I know it's hard to talk about like personal things, but I think it's important for us to
Mm,
share this because like I said, I don't think anyone's exempt from these
no, no.
situations and experiences, and that's why
Mm.
we're here. So,
It is. It is. Thank you so
um
much. Thank you.
thanks so much everyone. Until next time, be well.